Imagine this, a really sacred place, deep devotion, nestled way up in these lush green hills. Millions, literally millions, make this ancient, tough pilgrimage there every year. Now, picture that exact same spot suddenly becoming the center of, well, a global conference. And it's sparking huge debate, even threats of protests. It's become a national talking point. So today, we're taking a deep dive into exactly that kind of situation. It's all unfolding in Kerala, in India, right around the Sabarimala temple. And it's a story that I think really highlights this tension, between incredibly old traditions and these very modern, very global ambitions.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to dig into this proposed Global Ayyappa Summit. The date they're talking about is August 27th, 2025, and crucially, right at Sabarimala. It's just fascinating because you've got all these different angles, concerns from Hindu groups, the government's really big vision, and what it all means for, well, one of India's most important pilgrimage sites. It's sensitive, definitely.
Right, so our aim today really is to peel back those layers. We want to look at the devotion, the deep cultural meaning, this push for global recognition. And yes, we have to talk about the kind of swirling undercurrents too, worries about commercialization, the politics involved. It makes the whole thing incredibly complex, but also really captivating.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, to understand what's at stake, we first need to appreciate Sabarimala itself. It's located right in the Western Ghats, beautiful but rugged terrain, in Kerala's Pathanamthitta district. And this isn't just any temple, it's a huge spiritual landmark dedicated to Lord Ayyappa.
Exactly. Lord Ayyappa, who's seen as this embodiment of unity, self-discipline, spiritual toughness.
And millions, you mentioned millions of devotees go there every single year. They're called Ayyappa Swamis when they're on pilgrimage. That title signifies they've taken this really rigorous 41-day vow, the Vratham. It involves celibacy, austerity, basically stripping back life to focus purely on devotion.
It's incredibly distinct to this pilgrimage. The traditions are very specific. Yeah, and notably, there are those restrictions on entry for women of menstruating age. That's tied to the lore of Lord Ayyappa being an eternal celibate. And as, many listeners will probably remember, that specific tradition was the focus of a major Supreme Court ruling back in 2018.
Oh, yes. That sparked massive debate across India, didn't it, about constitutional rights versus these deeply, deeply held religious customs, a real flashpoint.
Definitely. So Sabarama isn't just a temple complex.
No, not at all. It's really a profound cultural cornerstone, especially for millions of Hindus in South India, but its influence spreads much wider. The practices there are, they're steeped in centuries of tradition. So any hint of change, any perceived outside interference, it often triggers really strong reactions.
History and faith just completely intertwined there.
Inseparable. It's fundamental to the identity of the pilgrimage itself.
Okay, so into this very traditional, very deeply significant setting comes this new idea. The Kerala government, under Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan, has announced this plan, this vision, for a Global Ayyappa Summit.
Right. And the government's framing is that this summit would be a powerful platform, a way to celebrate and promote Lord Ayyappa's spiritual and cultural significance, but on a global stage. The idea is to bring together devotees, sure, but also scholars, spiritual leaders, from all over the world.
What would they discuss?
Well, the plan is to delve into Ayyappa's philosophy, the temple's traditions, how it fosters unity and discipline. They're talking about spiritual talks, cultural exhibitions, showcasing traditional arts, that sort of thing. And importantly, discussions on sustainable pilgrimage practices, how to manage the site responsibly, essentially elevating its profile, but, they say, respectfully.
And it sounds like there's a practical side, too, beyond the spiritual outreach. They're talking about development.
Yes, definitely. They've hinted quite strongly at potential infrastructure upgrades. Think better roads leading up there, improved facilities for the pilgrims who come year-round, and also eco-friendly initiatives, which is crucial given it's in the Western Ghats, a very sensitive ecological zone.
So it sounds like this grand vision, doesn't it? Trying to bridge ancient faith with modern global connections, maybe bring in some investment.
That seems to be the goal.
But, and there's usually a but in these situations, this grand vision hasn't exactly been met with open arms everywhere. Despite the, noble goals the government is stating, these plans have faced pretty significant pushback.
Yeah, strong objections from several really prominent Hindu organizations. You've got groups like the Nair Service Society, the NSS, the Vishva Hindu Parishad, or VHP, and also various local Ayyappa devotee groups. They're not happy.
And they've even threatened protests, right?
Widespread protests, yes. Their concerns seem to come from a few different places, spiritual, cultural, but also very practical worries.
So what's the main thing?
Well, first and foremost, it seems to be this really fierce, almost gut-level desire to protect the sanctity, the holiness of Sabarimala. For many devotees, this isn't just a place to pray. It's a sacred zone defined by austerity, by pure devotion. It's absolutely not seen as, say, a conference center or a tourist attraction.
So the whole atmosphere is key.
Hugely key. That unique spiritual vibe cultivated by things like the 41-day vow, the specific simple clothing devotees wear, that's what they feel is really at risk here.
Which leads to that central question.
Exactly. Can you really have a huge international event, a global summit, fit with an ethos that's all about simplicity, detachment, solitude? That's the core tension. Opponents are worried. Deeply worried that bringing in lots of non-pilgrims, international visitors, may be unfamiliar with the specific customs, the rules of conduct, that it could just disrupt, maybe even damage that unique spiritual environment.
I saw a quote from one leader.
Yeah, expressing real concern. I think it went something like, Sabarimala is not a tourist spot or a conference venue. It's a place for penance, for devotion. The fear is clear. Turning it into a global spectacle could erode the very thing that makes it sacred, turning it into something it was never meant to be.
So it's more than just crowds. It's a potential clash of purpose.
Yeah.
Devotion versus maybe global PR.
That's exactly the concern, that the summit might, even unintentionally, end up prioritizing publicity, external appearances over that deep internal piety, that it could dilute the spiritual core that makes millions undertake such a difficult journey.
And the worries don't end just there, do they?
No, absolutely not. Another huge point that keeps coming up is the fear of commercialization.
Ah, right. The mention of infrastructure, tourism promotion.
Exactly. When officials talk about that, critics immediately jump to the conclusion that this is maybe a cover, a pretext for turning Sabarimala into some kind of commercial hub. They want it preserved as a pristine pilgrimage site, not developed like a resort.
And there are existing problems already, aren't there? With crowds and the environment?
Oh, definitely. Overcrowding during peak season is a major issue. And the environmental impact. Well, that's already a huge concern. Think about the Pamba River, for example. It's sacred, flows near the temple, vital for the rituals. But it's faced serious pollution problems because of the sheer number of pilgrims and, frankly, issues with waste management.
So a global event could make that worse?
That's the fear. That it could dramatically worsen these existing problems, push that delicate Western Ghats ecosystem too far, maybe even turn the sacred river into, well, something much less pristine.
And then, inevitably, there's the political angle.
Yeah.
Especially in Kerala, politics is always woven into things like this.
Always intricate, yes. Some Hindu groups, particularly those linked with the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party.
The right-wing nationalist mark.
Right. They've accused the current state government, the Left Democratic Front, or LDF, which is a left-wing coalition.
Accuse them of what?
Of essentially using this summit as a political tool to gain popularity, maybe score points before the next elections. There's this deep skepticism about the government's real motives. Is it truly spiritual outreach, or is it politics wrapped in religion?
Yeah. That kind of scrutiny happens a lot in India, doesn't it? When government gets involved in religious affairs.
Almost always. Any government action in such a sensitive religious area gets looked at very closely for hidden agendas. It's not just about the summit itself, but how it's perceived within this broader, often tense relationship between religion and the state.
And the BJP state president has spoken out.
Yes, Rajiv Chandrasekhar. He's been quite direct, warning the government, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, against misusing the faith of Ayyappa devotees for political gains. It shows this whole thing is definitely being seen through a sharp political lens by the opposition.
Okay, and one more point of friction seems to be consultation. Or the lack of it.
That's right. A recurring complaint is that key players haven't been properly brought into the loop.
Like the Travancore Devaswam Board, the TDB.
Exactly. They're the autonomous body that legally manages the temple, its properties, everything. And reports suggest they haven't been fully involved in planning an event of this scale, which seems odd, doesn't it?
It does. You'd think they'd be central to it.
Absolutely. For something this big, at such an important religious site, you'd expect deep collaboration with the people who actually run the place, who understand its traditions, its rituals, the needs of the devotees.
If the TDB has said something.
Yes, a representative basically stated, again paraphrasing, that they hadn't been adequately briefed on the summit's details or how it would operate. They emphasize that anything happening at Sabarimala must respect the temple's customs and the feelings of the millions of devotees. They urge the government to bring them into the process transparently.
So a call for real partnership.
A fundamental call for partnership and shared responsibility, yes.
Okay, so that's the opposition side. What about the government's defense? How are they responding to all this criticism?
Well, they're standing firm, defending the summit. They keep emphasizing their commitment, as they see it, to preserving the temple's sanctity while also promoting its global significance. Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan has been quite clear. The summit isn't intended to disrupt rituals or push devotees away. The aim, he says, is actually to deepen the understanding of Lord Ayyappa's message, which is universal.
What message specifically?
The teachings that emphasize unity, equality, spiritual discipline, those core principles. And officials have tried to offer reassurance. They've clarified that the actual summit activities wouldn't happen right at the Sanctum Sanctorum, the holiest part of the temple,
Where would they happen?
in a designated area set away from the main temple complex. The idea is to avoid interfering with the daily worship, the traditional pilgrimage routes. And they've also doubled down on the environmental promises, saying the event would follow strict guidelines to protect the Sabarimala ecosystem, things like better waste management, resource conservation.
So their message is, we can do both. Respect tradition and enhance global appeal.
That's precisely their argument, that it's not an either situation. They believe they can manage this carefully.
Right, trying to walk that very fine line. Promote the global side without, they argue, compromising the spiritual heart. And they're also pointing to economic benefits, aren't they?
Yes, quite significantly. They believe the summit could really boost tourism in Kerala, create jobs for local people, and, importantly, justify and fund those infrastructure improvements we talked about, roads, facilities which would benefit pilgrims throughout the year, not just during the summit.
And they claim they have a track record.
They do. They point to their management of other massive religious events in Kerala. The Attikal Pongala Festival is the big example they often cite.
Which is huge, right? Millions of women.
Absolutely massive, an incredible logistical challenge. The government highlights how they handle the crowds, security, sanitation, even eco-friendly measures there, as proof that they can balance tradition and modernity, handle huge numbers without, they claim, compromising the event's spiritual integrity.
So this current controversy, it fits into a bigger picture in Kerala.
Oh, definitely. And really across India. It reflects this ongoing tension, this constant negotiation between preserving deeply rooted religious traditions and embracing what's seen as modern development, often linked to economic growth. And Sabarimala, as we mentioned, was right at the heart of that huge debate in 2018 over the women's entry issue.
Yeah, that Supreme Court ruling really split the country. Some saw it as crucial for gender equality, upholding constitutional rights.
While others saw it as a major overreach, an attack on religious freedom and ancient customs.
And the summit debate feels like it touches some of those same nerves, doesn't it? Asking those same fundamental questions about who decides what's sacred and how change happens.
It certainly echoes those tensions, and we absolutely cannot forget the environmental factor here. It's critical.
Because it's in the Western Ghats.
Exactly. An ecologically fragile biodiversity hotspot. The sheer number of pilgrims visiting each year already puts enormous strain on the local resources. Water, forests, waste disposal capacity. So any big new event, even if they promise it'll be eco-friendly, inevitably carries risks. It could make those existing problems much worse. So those government promises about green measures, they're going to be watched very, very closely by environmental groups and by devotees who care deeply about keeping the area pristine.
And you know what often gets lost in these big debates are the individual voices. The people actually living there or going on the pilgrimage. What are they saying?
That's so important. And the feelings are quite mixed, actually.
Like Ramesh Nair, you mentioned him earlier, a bank employee.
Right, from Kochi. He expressed this kind of conflicted feeling. He said he sort of understood why the government might want to showcase Sabarimala globally, but he was really worried it could turn into a commercial circus. He stressed that for him, the temple is about quiet reflection, personal spiritual effort, definitely not a stage for conferences or tourism promotion.
But not everyone feels that way. There was Priya S., the teacher.
Yes, from Thiruvananthapuram. She saw some potential upside. She felt that if, and it's big if it was done respectfully, really honoring the traditions, maybe the summit could help spread Lord Ayyappa's message of unity to a wider audience.
What was her condition, though?
Transparency. She stressed the need for the government to be totally open about its plans, and crucially, that devotees and the traditional temple authorities must be genuinely involved in the planning right from the start, not just informed after decisions are made.
And even the local businesses,
Yeah.
the shopkeepers who rely on the pilgrims.
Cautious optimism seems to be the mood there. We heard from Anil Kumar, who sells prayer items near the temple path. He said, quite frankly, he hoped for more business, which is natural, but he immediately added a condition: only if the temple's sanctity is preserved. His big fear was, we don't want Sabarimala to lose its soul just for a few extra rupees.
Wow. That really sums up the dilemma, doesn't it? Balancing economic needs with spiritual integrity.
It really does, and these personal stories show there isn't just one single community view. It's complex. There's hope, there's fear, there's pragmatism, there's deep piety, all mixed together. So as this whole situation moves forward, everyone's watching the Kerala government and the Travancore Devaswam Board. Can they find a way through this that respects tradition, but also acknowledges these other pressures? It's going to take real dialogue, real listening.
So what are the next steps? What's likely to happen?
Well, the Hindu organizations that are objecting, they've formally called for meetings with state officials. They want to sit down and discuss their concerns directly in detail.
Have they proposed alternatives?
Some have, yes. One suggestion gaining traction is a kind of compromise: hold the summit, but not at Sabarimala itself, maybe in a nearby city like Pathanamthitta or even the state capital Thiruvananthapuram. The idea being you could still achieve the global outreach, the discussions, but without disrupting the sacred site directly.
And the environmental groups.
They're pushing hard, too. They're demanding a full, independent environmental impact assessment before any final decision is made on the summit. Their point is that sustainability has to come first to avoid causing long-term, maybe irreversible damage to this very sensitive area.
And the government's response to all this.
For now, they've promised more consultations. They say they will talk to all the stakeholders, the TDB, the Hindu groups, the environmental experts.
But will those talks be enough to calm the opposition, to find common ground?
That's the big question, isn't it? Whether these consultations will lead to genuine compromise or just be seen as a formality, it really remains to be seen. It's a very delicate negotiation process ahead.
So putting it all together, what we're seeing is this really bold, quite ambitious plan from the Kerala government. They want to put Sabarimala on the global map, promising cultural exchange, economic boosts. But it's slamming right into these very real, very deep concerns about protecting the sanctity of a place millions hold sacred. Fears about commercialization, environmental damage, and this feeling that maybe the key people weren't properly included in the planning.
It really is a delicate balancing act, maybe even precarious. The government has to tread so carefully here. How do they ensure an event like this genuinely respects the feelings of millions of devotees, preserves the essence of the place, while still trying to achieve these wider goals of global recognition and cultural promotion? And you can be sure millions of Ayyappa devotees, not just in India, but all around the world, are watching this very, very closely. They want to see if the true spirit of Sabarimala can survive this push onto the global stage.
You know, it leads you thinking, doesn't it? In this world where everything's so connected, how do we actually honor the spiritual legacy, the ancient traditions of these incredibly sacred places? How do we respect their true essence, not just their image, while still allowing for cultural exchange, for what some people see as progress or development? And maybe the biggest question is, what's the real way to measure development when something so deeply spiritual is right at the heart of it? How do we make sure we don't accidentally trade the soul of a place for a spot on the world stage?